Can you guess what the instrument generating this sound is? Bingo, it's bagpipes. Let's come to our presentation today to find out more about bagpipes, but not bagpipes in general, but the Scottish ones in two outstanding paintings from two historical periods. We are going to present to you Scotland's topography first, then two mentioned historical periods, and last but not least, how bagpipes are presented in the two paintings. The Scottish bagpipes we know today stem from Great Highland bagpipes. Therefore, the focus of this video is on the Highlands of Scotland. There are three main subregions in Scotland: Northern Highlands, Southern Uplands, and Central Lowlands. The most prominent feature of the Highlands is its mountains and deep valleys, where only fewer than 1 million people live. Let's move on to the next part, history, and concentrate on two main historical periods, the Highland clearances and World War I. The Highland clearances happened around the 1740s when King James VI ascended. He was afraid that clans in Scotland would be loyal to their chief clans instead of him. Therefore, the Act of Proscription was passed as a direct attack on the tradition of Northern Highlanders, such as tartan or bagpipes as a byproduct. Another cause of this upheaval was money, because landowners considered sheep farming to have more financial benefits than ground lease. Thus, the Heritable Jurisdiction Act was enforced to evict people and spare lands for sheep herding. The final rationale is a potato blight, which caused widespread famine to Highlanders. And the next period is World War I, in which Scotland, along with England on the Allies, is against Central Powers. Scotland's population was just 1/10 compared to Britain. However, the death of Scots was 1/5 also compared to Britain. This is because these brave Scotsmen had jingoistic patriotic fervor, so they were so enthusiastic to come to the war's front line.
In this part, I'll present the meaning of bagpipes via a painting named A Coronach in the Bagpipes. The picture was painted in 1859 by George Simpson, a member of the Photographic Society of Scotland. In the painting, the bagpipe, appearing as a symbol of Scottish, actually tells a story of Scottish Highland family in a particular historical event, the Highland clearances. As Fang has just presented, in the 18th century, many Scots, particularly Highlanders, was forced to leave their homeland for America, Canada, and other colonies. That would explain why the picture is not set in Scottish Highlands, but actually in Canada. The picture depicts the surrounding nature as dark and seemingly hostile, unveiling a gloomy period in Scottish history. Furthermore, the Scottish Highland family still brings the bagpipe along the challenging journey, which indicates that they have a strong longing for their homeland. That sense can be revealed via the image of the piper's wife. The wife cannot help bursting into tears on hearing bad news from her home. When she tries to comfort her baby, she has broken down and is emotionally exhausted with a crumbled letter. Not only the wife, but also the man would express his nostalgia for Scotland through the voice of his bagpipe, playing the coronach, which is considered a lament or a funeral song of the Highlands. Described as a typically resourceful and independent Highland emigrant, the man has cleared the forest with his axe and built a cabin. The point is, though he has achieved this, his mind is still filled with a vision of home. Miles away from their homeland, the Scottish Highland families still give their bagpipes as a reminder of their roots and cultural heritage. That's the way they show their national pride and patriotism. Such a deep connection between the Scottish and their identity. Wherever the Highlanders emigrate, they still take bagpipes with them. That's why bagpipes are not only popular in Scotland, but wherever the Scots are to be found. Last but not least, the icon of the piper is emblematic of Highlanders' bravery. The piper stands playing his bagpipe with a proud, composed, and solemn appearance. His look is fixed on something beyond and above the viewer, maybe toward the void or perhaps the sky. The future is unexpected, yet with bagpipes he shows his composedness and self-control. Through the image of the bagpipe, another quality of Highlander has been unveiled: bravery. Bravery for exploring and dominating the new land, and for bearing the pain of bad news with dignity. That's the bagpipe in the context of the Highland clearances. What about the image of bagpipes during wartime? Let's find out the next part with Minh Anh.
Thank you, Phương, for inviting me. In the previous part presented by Thu Phương, we have a chance to witness bravery for exploring and dominating the new land, and for bearing the pain of the bad news with dignity. Few years later, Bagpipes appeared in another work titled The Campbells Are Coming, which speak volumes of the rich Scottishness set in a particular historical event. It is the work of art painted by artist Rachel, who is best known for being one of the most prolific and effective painters of the battle scenes in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. These works handsomely illustrated Scottish soldiers, specifically pipers of the Royal Highland Regiment, leading the man-torched German lines in France under enemy fire during the Battle of Somme in July 1916. So, let's first take a closer look to the color of the painting, black and white. The predominant use of this kind of color is considered a particular painting technique. It successfully depicts the harsh, bleak, desolate, and bin-filled landscapes of the early years of World War I, of the shells flying over, of the weapons and wounds on the fierce battlefield. At that time, there is a sound appearing from an instrument of war, bagpipes. Why bagpipes? It is said that the shrill and penetrating sound worked well in the roar of battle, and that the pipes can be heard at distances up to 10 miles away, more than 16 kilometers. Its purpose was to signal tactical movements to the troops, in the same way as buglers were used in infantry to relay orders from officers to soldiers during battle, and to boost morale amongst the troops and intimidate the enemy. However, there is one thing that makes bagpipes on the battlefields become an emblematic symbol of Scottishness rather than just bagpipes' functions: their gallantry. The leading of the army is not the generals nor the sturdy shields, but by the bagpipes players. In the front line on the battlefield, they were armed only with their pipes and the traditional attire kilt, no weapons at all, and they played a tune to fight the enemies. But what we can see is a proud, solemn, composed gestures from the pipers, and even their fearless facial expressions. They were not immortal, having little armed leading to the extremely high death rate among pipers. It is estimated that around 1,000 pipers died in World War I, and eventually it did not prevent them from bravely participating into wars and successfully completing their mission, which is boost the whole army spirit, or pull the shaken men together, ready for the assault. Scotland was a country overtaken by battles and war. They fought to keep the country, and often fought amongst themselves to keep their lands and possessions. They are the nation built on pride and courage, and will die for their country. This identity was depicted perfectly in the images of bagpipes on walls. Bagpipes itself, having been intertwined with Scotland, meant great sense of bravery and recklessness, creating the most effective weapons to fight enemies. And this also brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you for your attention.